Once, in a kingdom where orchards blossomed early and the bells of the villages rang clear across the valleys, there lived a girl whose name would one day be known everywhere, Cinderella. But at the beginning, she was not yet called that. She was the daughter of a respected gentleman and his kind-hearted wife. Their home, though not the grandest in the land, was full of warmth, laughter, and love. In her early years, the girl's world was one of gardens where she played, firesides where she listened to stories, and a mother whose hands were always gentle. Yet, as in many stories, joy was short-lived. Her mother fell ill, and the brightness of the house dimmed. Before she passed, she held her daughter's hand and whispered, "Be good, my child. Have courage and be kind. If you hold those things, you will never truly be alone." The girl, too young to understand the weight of loss, wept, and her father, burdened with grief, sought comfort and companionship. In time, he married again. The new wife, though noble in appearance, carried a heart colder than stone. She brought with her 2 daughters, proud and sharp of tongue. They entered the house like shadows that lengthened each day. At first, they played at kindness, but soon the mask dropped and cruelty took its place. The girl was given the hardest chores, made to sweep ashes from the hearth, scrub floors, and carry water until her hands grew raw. The stepsisters mocked her, especially when she sat near the fire to warm herself, her face smudged with soot. "Cinderella," they laughed, for she looked as though dressed in cinders. The name stuck, though it was never meant kindly, and so began the tale of Cinderella, not as a princess, not even as a guest at court, but as a girl whose only crown was patience, and whose only jewels were kindness. Days passed into months, months into years. Cinderella's father, though not blind, was powerless against his wife's bitterness. He spent more and more time away on business, and when he was home, he was wrapped in silence, unable or unwilling to defend his daughter. The stepmother seized her rule of the household. She clothed her daughters in silks and lace, while Cinderella wore rags. She sat her daughters at fine meals, while Cinderella dined on scraps. The girl bore it all quietly, her mother's words echoing, "Have courage and be kind." Kindness became her armor. Birds came when she called, perching on the window ledge as though her voice were music. Mice scurried at her feet, not in fear, but in friendship. In the quiet corners of the house, Cinderella found companions and creatures often overlooked, and they repaid her with small comforts. Threads gathered, crumbs shared, warmth against her loneliness. One morning, the bells of the kingdom rang differently, loud, triumphant, summoning. A royal herald rode through every street, unfurling a scroll and proclaiming, "The king invites all young maidens of noble birth to a grand ball at the palace. His son, the prince, shall attend, and it is hoped he may choose among them his bride." The words lit a spark in every household. Dresses were pulled from wardrobes, jewels polished, manners rehearsed. In Cinderella's home, excitement turned to command. The stepsisters shrieked for new gowns, the stepmother ordered alterations in jewels. And Cinderella, though her heart whispered a dream, was ordered to stitch and hem, to press fabric until the hours bled into days. When at last she timidly asked if she might attend, her stepmother's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. "You, in rags, covered in ash? You shall not shame us. Stay behind and finish your chores." Hope trembled in her chest, fragile as glass. She obeyed. Yet when the night of the ball came and she watched her stepsisters depart in silks and jewels, her heart ached with longing. She went to the garden and wept, alone among the pumpkins. It was then that the air shifted. A warmth filled the garden, though the night was cool. From the shadows stepped a woman cloaked in silver light, her eyes kind and knowing. "My child," she said, "why do you weep?" Cinderella, startled but not afraid, told her story. The cruelty, the chores, the dream of going to the ball. The woman smiled. "You are gentle, though wrong, and for that you shall go." She raised a wand and wonders unfolded. A pumpkin swelled, twisted, and became a golden carriage. Mice grew into horses, their whiskers turning into proud manes. A rat became the coachman, lizards the footmen, all transformed yet loyal. At last she touched herself. The rags melted into a gown shimmering with silver and blue, delicate as moonlight. Upon her feet appeared slippers of glass, shining with the brilliance no jewel could match. "Go to the ball," said the fairy godmother, for such she was. "But remember, when the clock strikes 12, the spell will break. Your carriage will be a pumpkin, your horses mice, your gown rags again." Cinderella bowed with gratitude, her heart alight. She entered the carriage and was borne away to the palace. The palace was ablaze with light. Candles glittered like stars, chandeliers rained brilliance, music lifted and swirled through gilded halls. Maidens in gowns bright as blossoms filled the room, but when Cinderella entered, silence followed her like a tide. Her beauty was not merely in her gown, nor her glass slippers. It was in her grace, the quiet dignity with which she carried herself. The prince, who had greeted countless maidens that evening with polite disinterest, beheld her and forgot all others. He took her hand, and together they danced. Eyes followed them, whispers stirred, envy rose among the watching, but none could deny the harmony between them. They danced once, twice, again and again, until Cinderella scarcely remembered the world outside the music. But the clock does not forget. When its hands neared 12, she remembered the warning. Fear surged. She fled the prince's grasp, racing through the hall, down the grand staircase. In her haste, one glass slipper slipped from her foot, ringing lightly against the stone. She dared not stop. Into the night she ran as the clock struck 12. Her carriage vanished, her gown turned to rags. Her horses scurried as mice. She stumbled into the shadows, heart pounding. Her only treasure? The one glass slipper still upon her foot. The prince searched the hall, finding only the slipper she had left behind. He held it as though it were a jewel, declaring, "I shall not rest until I find her. The one whose foot this slipper fits shall be my bride." The kingdom buzzed with excitement. From manor to cottage, noble to humble, the prince's men carried the slipper, testing it on every maiden. Feet too long, too wide, too narrow, all failed. At last they came to Cinderella's house. The stepsisters tried first, each cramming their foot, wincing, pressing, but the slipper refused. The prince turned to go, but Cinderella stepped forward, her voice calm. "May I try?" Laughter burst from the stepsisters. "Her? She sits in ashes. She cannot be the lady from the ball." But the prince, hearing something familiar in her voice, nodded. She sat, slid her foot into the slipper, and it fit as though made for her. Because it was. In wonder, she drew forth the other slipper she had kept hidden. She placed it upon her other foot, and in that moment, the rags shimmered, transforming once again into the gown of silver and light. The prince knew her then, not by the gown, not by the slippers, but by the radiance of her kindness. He knelt, took her hand, and said, "You are the one I have sought. Come with me and be my bride." The wedding was celebrated with joy beyond measure. Bells rang, music soared, and even the heavens seemed brighter. Cinderella, once mocked and mistreated, now walked in honor, but she carried her kindness into her new life, never letting pride harden her heart. Her stepsisters, ashamed, bowed before her. Some say she forgave them, offering places at her table. Others say she let them go their way. In every telling, she remained true to her mother's words. Have courage and be kind. As queen, she remembered the poor and the overlooked, for she knew what it was to sit among ashes. And the prince, who loved her for more than beauty, ruled beside her with fairness. The fairy godmother, though unseen, was never far, for every act of kindness is a kind of magic. And Cinderella's life became a proof that goodness, though tested, never perishes. And so her story was told from hearth to castle, across valleys and villages. A reminder that patience can endure cruelty, that hope can outlast despair, and that even among ashes, a girl may rise to dance in silver shoes. Thus ends the tale of Cinderella, the girl who lived in cinders but found her way to light.